shit.
This is Too Old for This Shit. Each week we dissect, discuss and critique the best and worst action movies from the 80s and 90s. You're listening to the podcast that puts critical thought into a mindless genre. My name is Antonio and I'm joined by my co-host Josh.
Hey, I'm here.
Now Josh grew up watching these films.
I did.
I am seeing them for the first time and giving them a fresh perspective. Thank you.
You just kicked
Jerry
me under
Lewis.
the table, okay?
Now, this film is a little bit different in that I have actually seen it and you have not.
Oh my God, a plot twist.
So the film we are watching today is...
Midnight Run.
This is a personal favourite of mine.
I'd never actually even heard of this movie.
Well,
And then you started talking about it and I was like, what the... Did Robert De Niro is in
Yeah.
Charles Grodin? What?
Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin starring in the buddy action film Midnight Run. So the first time I saw this would have been about 8 or 9 years ago. I heard about it from a radio show I used to listen to hosted by comedian Tony Martin. It is his number one film recommendation because he believes that it's a film that appeals to anyone. He's like, if I ever recommend a film to someone, that is the one because it's like perfect middle of the road, does what it says on the cover, decent surprises, just like it's good.
Yeah, I can see that.
So that
I haven't seen it, but yeah, I can see that.
So I bought it on DVD with that recommendation and then I watched it probably twice in the space of 3 weeks.
Okay.
And one of those times was with a group of people of different ages and tastes, and they all actually did enjoy the film. They were genuinely surprised.
Did you take a Google survey after this? Or?
No. I just distinctly remember everyone going, "Oh, that was a good film."
Yeah.
At the end of it. So that it's always held a special place in my heart, but I have not watched it in about 5 years.
Okay.
So I'm interested to see if it still holds up. It's been a long time.
All right, I'm interested too because this is this is a movie that I'm like I thought I was pretty much a De Niro fan. Like I'd seen most of his stuff, and like I said, I just didn't know this one.
Nah, you missed one.
Totally missed it. All
right, well I'm very excited to see what you think and to see whether or not my impressions still hold up.
Let's dive in.
It's nothing personal, Jack, but fuck off, all right?
Take it easy. Jesus.
Marvin, what's up?
I got money, I'm sure you do. I'll give you whatever you want.
Stop by shutting up. I know you all of 2 minutes, and already I don't like you.
See, that's too bad. I really like you.
Alonzo Mosley, FBI.
Oh, that's a nice badge. How can I get one of those?
Yeah? Is this moron number 1? Put moron number 2 on the phone.
I also suffer from acrophobia and claustrophobia.
I'll tell you what, if you don't cooperate, you're going to suffer from fistophobia.
He got the Duke!
No kidding?
And we're back.
We are. We made it. We made it by midnight.
Yes, we got there. No, was it 11:48? I think was when 11:28 was when he got out of the airport or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. He get right before the deadline.
Yes. So yeah, initial reactions for Midnight Run.
Well, no, I'm just kidding.
No.
This isn't. I have a feeling is this going to be like your Hudson Hawk? No.
Well, no. Look, let's put it out of the way. I definitely look back on it with rose-tinted glasses for sure. After seeing it now, I'm kind of like, oh, okay. It's not perfect and probably not amazing either, but I definitely enjoy bits of it, and it does some stuff that I really, really like.
I liked it, but I felt like I watched it too late in life. I feel like if I had watched this movie when I was either a kid or sometime in, when it came out, 88 it came out?
Yeah.
So it would have been about 6. So, I mean, I obviously wouldn't be watching this movie. There's a lot of swearing in this movie.
Apparently 112 F-bombs in the film.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Look, I think maybe if I'd watched this on VHS as a kid, I would have a better relationship to it.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was bad. I can see why it's a cult classic. It definitely has a reputation of being a cult classic, but I don't think it will not be a cult classic for me.
It's the interplay between De Niro and Grodin, and also John Ashton's character.
And who?
He's the other bounty hunter.
Oh, Marvin.
Yeah, Marvin.
I liked Marvin.
Yeah, that like those three, and also like the whole thing with Yaphet Kotto as Alonzo Mosley. It's just and the Goomba bloody mobsters.
Yeah,
like it's all those and Dennis Farina. Like it's all the character stuff in this that I just really really enjoy. Like these characters, apart from Charles Grodin's character, really, everyone is either angry or an idiot.
Smart ass.
And they just have some great one-liners. And yeah, for me, and one of the reasons I think, this film works so well is key to how they put the film together as well is casting Grodin alongside De Niro as opposed to other options that they had.
And it's really, when I heard like Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro together, it's really like the concept is great. Like it's like, what the heck?
Yeah,
like,
no, it doesn't sound like it should work at all. You also go, well, Charles Grodin, what the fuck has he done?
Oh, see the thing. Well, look. For me, Charles Grodin is like he's in a lot of comedy movies, and
right.
I know what a Charles Grodin movie, or like I know what his role is, but like putting him together with De Niro is just a really interesting choice. But it works.
Yeah. See, I the only thing I can think of, he immediately comes to mind when Beethoven immediately comes to mind when I think of him.
That's it. Yeah.
Which is So starring Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin. We've also got, as I said before, Yaphet Kotto playing the FBI agent Alonzo Mosley.
Oh, the wonderful Yaphet Kotto from Alien, and he used to be on Homicide. He was like the lieutenant on Homicide, Left on the Street.
John Ashton as Marvin Dorfler. He's one of those faces that you see throughout the 80s and sort of would have bit parts and everything, but like he does an amazing job as the second rate bounty hunter to De Niro's Jack Walsh.
Oh, Charles Grodin was in Heart and Souls as well.
We're only talking about Heart and Souls
last time.
Joe Pantoliano with hair.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I've ever seen him with hair.
Dennis Farina.
And Dennis Farina just doing Dennis Farina.
Another
things.
good paisano.
Yeah, exactly.
All the paisanos. De Niro. What is paisano? Actually, what does that actually mean? Oh, countryman.
Kind of. So it's kind of like
país, country.
Paese I think means country.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, in Spanish, país is country.
There we go.
Okay.
So and then who are the guys who play the mobsters? Because they were great.
Stereotype Italian American. A
stereotype American.
But the other guy, the kind of the balding guy was. He didn't strike me as being a paisano. Actually, I was kind of like.
You reckon of the two gangsters?
Yeah, he didn't. Was he? It'll be interesting to figure out what his actual name is.
Oh, you could be right. I think it's. You know what? Looking at these names, you could be right. Richard Ferrangi and Robert Miranda. Like Robert Miranda, probably.
That dude. That's one of them. That's because I know that Joey. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you might be right. Actually,
Tony Darvo.
Yeah, I can't remember the character name. Let's be honest, they're just Goomba 1 and Goomba 2.
Paisano 1 and Paisano 2.
But so in terms of how De Niro got onto this film,
yes,
he, off the back of Untouchables, wanted to do something different. He wanted to do a comedy.
You mean he was sick of playing stereotypical Italian-American characters?
Yeah, he was sick of it. And so this script came along and he really, really liked it. And Charles Grodin, his role went through a few changes. Apparently, Albert Brooks turned this role down, which I think is probably a mistake. I reckon
on Brooksy's part.
Yeah. Could you imagine Albert Brooks and Robert De Niro in this film?
I love Albert Brooks.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
He would have, Grodin does a great job, but Albert Brooks
might have made this movie a bit better. I don't know. Yeah, look.
Apparently, Robin Williams was interested, but was never auditioned because once they saw Charles Grodin's audition with De Niro, they were like, we've got it.
Yeah, okay.
And at one stage, Paramount wanted the role to be played by Cher because she was doing quite well at the time.
What the fuck? So she could dance on a cannon in a navy?
I don't know. And they wanted to add sexual overtones to the film.
God. Look, there's enough between De Niro and Grodin.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about fucking animals,
Yeah, exactly. They talk about having sex with chickens at some point. That is actual dialogue from the movie, folks.
Yes. Improvised dialogue as well.
I wondered about that, how much of the dialogue, because really what this movie is a variation on the kind of annoying companion movie. It's a plane, trains, and automobiles. What's the other one? Due Date, that horrible Zach Galifianakis. That was just a horrible unofficial remake of Planes, Trains.
Yep.
There's another one too, Bulletproof with Adam Sandler, and it's very similar to this actually and Damon Wayans.
Well, it's kind of it's almost like it's the apex almost of the buddy action film genre that started in the early 80s from things like 48 Hours.
The mismatched hero, the mismatched characters who are forced together. 48 Hours.
Actually, no, Lethal Weapon is probably the apex of that, actually, to be honest.
A little bit, but that's a little bit different in the sense like these are what I'm talking about. This type of movie is the ticking clock. There's a ticking clock element.
The road film.
It's a road. It's the circumstances throw them together. There's no real concise way to say this. This is what I'm finding as I'm describing this genre, is there's literally no concise description.
But I think when you say sort of, it's that thing. It's that
the ticking
journey.
clock element.
Yeah.
It's that with Due Date, with Bulletproof, with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, there's a ticking clock. So they have to make it to a place by a certain time, and the mode of transportation keeps changing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we should probably, speaking of which, we should probably do the plot.
So, Jack Walsh is an ex-cop turned bounty hunter who has to get mafia accountant John the Duke Mardukas back to LA by midnight, otherwise he won't get the $100,000 reward from his bail bondsman friend Marconi.
Jack's eager to get the money so he can get out of the bounty hunting game for good. It's not an easy trip because the Duke is the most annoying person in the world to Jack. Also because the FBI, the Mafia, and Jack's bounty hunter nemesis Marvin are also out to kill, arrest, or bring in the Duke.
It's a cross-country game of hide and seek as everyone is out to get everyone. Everyone is double-crossing everyone, and every means of transport is used to get the two men from New York to LA before the Friday midnight deadline.
And that's it.
But, did you actually...
And look, that's
the
the
plot,
description.
though,
yes, look, that, and I will say, when I wrote that is the description of the plot, but I will say that description does not do the film justice.
well,
Because it's so much of it is about the interplay of all the characters.
Yeah, but because when I'm thinking, watching the film again, I feel like it's quite dense in terms of the plot. There's a lot going on.
It is very
because
dense.
There's the background for De Niro's character, there's a background for Grodin's character as well, as to how they're both involved with Serrano, who's the gangster.
And as I was writing this plot, I left all that out because as soon as I started getting into any little aspect of it, I was like, oh, I have to include this. I have to include that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it gets very dense very quick.
But what I thought, watching it again, what I thought was interesting is that you have all of these elements, but the film doesn't feel overstuffed necessarily.
No, it doesn't.
And that's probably one of its biggest strengths, is that it's I wouldn't say complex story, but it's a rich story that's told in such a way and that doesn't feel like you're getting exposition dumps, but it also, and you just kind of enjoy the ride for the most of it.
And that's what these movies are. Speaking of how it was written, George Gallo, the writer, who also is the writer on this film, who also wrote Bad Boys, the original Bad Boys. A lot of his movies are these sort of similar buddy-type movies, like Wise Guys with Danny DeVito and Joe Pantoliano. The Whole Ted Yards. He did a film called Double Take with Orlando Bloom and Eddie Griffin. So there's a lot of these buddy movies that he seems to kind of specialize in this genre.
This film also feels like the kind of film that doesn't get made as much in this post-internet age where we have superhero films and big spectacles and stuff. It's like these little action films, which is a lot of what we're seeing when doing this podcast, is they're there just to make a small amount of money. It's just a little investment for the studio, and it's just this fun little ride that may end up just getting forgotten in 2 years.
Well, this is this is definitely an actor-driven film.
Yeah, and a lot of what Gallo has done is kind of like that as well. It's just like, it's the kind of thing that, we'll probably make a studio $10 million and then...
Yeah, well, this movie was successful, wasn't it?
Reasonably.
Not a huge hit.
It was a roughly $30 million budget, made $35 million domestically, and then I think another 40 internationally.
Yeah,
so
it's
it did pretty well.
Yeah, they're not losing money. Martin Brest, the director, coming off the back of Beverly Hills Cop, and also directed Al Pacino to an Academy Award in Scent of Woman after this film, and then
directed Jilly
and ended his career forever. He has not directed a film since 2003.
It's so weird that he's just you look at his credits and they just stop in 2003.
Yeah,
that's it.
He was also removed from the film War Games as well by the producer. So maybe he's a difficult, but I have no idea.
I do really enjoy this film, so I've read a lot about it. Yaphet Kotto did say that he was a pain in the ass and would do endless takes of things
Right.
So yeah, it could be possible that he's just not that great to work with. And then also soundtrack by Danny Elfman, which this one's like, it's when you hear the name Danny Elfman, you kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, Simpsons theme, Tim Burton, but this doesn't sound like any of that at all.
And the soundtrack I thought was quite good.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a jazz, bluesy sort of, moves the film along. It definitely, the soundtrack really sets the tone for the film in a really kind of prescriptive way. And it's light. I mean, even though this is like, there's, mafia, hitmen, and there's genuinely violent scenes in this. Like there's a helicopter gunship that comes after them at one point. It's a genuinely light film, and in the ending scene, when the ending scene is De Niro gets Dennis Farina on a conspiracy charge, so that in this sort of sideways deal, so that the Yaphet Kotto, the FBI man, will let him go, and he can
cash in on the bounty.
Exactly. There's no big shootout at the end. It actually ends with the shootout being avoided. So I was like, okay, that was a really good choice tonally, because if they had done a huge shootout and people were dying, I'd be like, well, this is a much different film.
Well, and the other thing is, I think only 2 people die in the film.
Oh, when the helicopter gunship goes down.
Okay, let's say 5. There's the 2 guys who shoot up the bus stop that they get killed by the FBI.
Oh yeah.
And then the helicopter that crashes. But other than that, it isn't the kind of film that has mass action film casualties.
No, there isn't. It's really a game of cat and mouse along the way. It's about the ride. I mean, no pun intended.
And it's about all the clever things that Jack Walsh and Marvin do as bounty hunters in order to find people and get them to where they need to be as well.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, if you could boil this film down, it's about the interplay of Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro. It's about one guy annoying the crap out of the other.
Yeah.
But that's what these movies are. Like, they're always like, one guy's incredibly annoying and the other guy's like, I can't take it anymore.
And just gets excessively angry for no reason.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff I love. But there's also little details in the film that I enjoy as well. Stuff like things like how Jack Walsh picks a lock, and also how he hotwires a car at one point. They seem so different and complex in comparison to how we've seen them in other films. You kind of go, maybe that's actually how that's done.
Oh, interesting. You've seen this movie a few more times than I have, but I didn't pick up on that.
Well, because he hotwires a car, and in order to do it, it's this ute, and he pulls a wire out of the side of the tray of the ute, which runs along, and then pulls it out, and then pops the bonnet, and then brings the wire around and winds up something underneath the bonnet, and then all of a sudden it starts. Which, when we've seen that in a Hollywood film, it's someone gets into the driver's seat, pops some bit of plastic from behind the steering column, and there happens to be some bare wires, and it's vroom,
yeah, it's convenient. There's always there's always exposed wiring. And,
exactly. And
you stick your credit card into a door and wiggle it a little bit. Hey, the door pops open.
Exactly. It's things like that seem interesting. And also, he taps a cordless phone in order to find out where Charles Grodin is at the start of the film. Just these little surveillance techniques and sort of espionage stuff. I'm like, okay, maybe this would actually work. Because that's right. He records the cordless. He taps into the cordless phone to prompt them to make a phone call, so then he can hear the numbers that person is calling and figure out what that phone number is.
Yeah. And look, and it's clever. I mean, the whole thing too is with De Niro's character. Jack Walsh is he's forced out of the way the story dovetails in on itself. What actually gives the story the character meat is that the mobster that the Duke steals the money from, so the Duke steals the money and gives it all to charity.
Yeah,
and so
most of it.
But that's the same, mobster who drove De Niro out of Chicago
because he wouldn't go on the payroll.
Because he wouldn't go on the take. Yeah. And so it plays with Charles Grodin. As soon as he goes to jail, as soon as the Duke goes to jail, he's going to be killed by the guy who De Niro refuses to take a payoff for. Yeah. So he's doing the thing to get his money. De Niro's doing the thing to get his money, but he's actually kind of betraying himself in a sense. And that's what leads to ultimately he lets him go at the end.
Yeah. And there's also that moment where Charles is constantly trying to get him to reconcile with his ex-wife and his daughter. So Jack Walsh's character there's quite a lot behind him. He's not just some angry dude who's a bounty hunter because he was a shit cop or something like that. He's actually was a great cop who was driven into bounty hunting because of these reasons, which again I think is great. Yeah,
I liked it. I all that stuff I really appreciated. I thought that really gave the script dimension that it wouldn't have had otherwise, and that's the strength of this movie is the characters.
Yep.
All of the characters, for the most part, feel pretty fleshed out.
Yeah, for sure, and just some great dialogue. I mean, was so. What doesn't work for you in this film?
Look, in a sense, the thing that didn't work for me was that the script, while I appreciated a lot of what they were doing, it felt a little bit tired in the sense that like some of the scenes, like getting from one scene to the next, felt cumbersome.
Yeah,
and
right.
that was the thing that like really made it drag for me. Like made this movie drag was that there was a lot of like we essentially know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that gives the freedom for the filmmaker to play a lot more. And I thought there was a lot of missed opportunities to play.
Right.
In the sense of like, Joey's calling Tony in Las Vegas, and there's just a lot of cliche dialogue around like in those sort of transitional scenes. Like we're getting from one place to the next.
Yeah.
I thought they could have, cranked it up to 11. There was just too much of, moving the story along but like, we know what's going to happen at the end of the scene, so just say funny, make wisecracks within it.
And then it definitely had a lot less action and set pieces in it than I remember. I feel like it was the pace of the film was a lot slower than I remember it being. Like I liked some of the dialogue scenes, but I think it's kind of the point I'm trying to make is similar to yours in that it's like it took us a while to get there, and it took us a while to get to the fun parts that I remember at some points. So yeah, that was probably a thing for me. And so in terms of like rewatchability for this film, I just don't think it has as much rewatchability as I initially thought it did.
I probably wouldn't go back to it.
Yeah.
Although one thing I will say is I really like the twist at the end. I mean, I knew that, Jack is going to let the Duke go free at the end. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But when the Duke hands him the money, I was like, okay, I actually generally didn't see that coming. And I was like, all right, little tip of the hat there for you.
Yeah, no,
So,
but see, the other side of that is kind of like, but at the end of the day, what that means is that the character gets, I guess, he's getting rewarded for making the good choice. Like there's no grey in that. It's kind of black and white. It's like, oh, okay, he made the good choice, which also means he got 3 times the amount of money he was going to get anyway. Not that he knew that was going to happen, but it's a very Hollywood ending in that sense, in that like our hero is left still better than where he started from both a financial standpoint as well as probably a psychological / emotional one.
Yeah, we got back in touch with his wife and kid, and he hadn't seen his kid in 9 years. And I mean, even though he does leave his ex-wife's car at somewhere outside of Sedona, Arizona, or Amarillo, Texas, or something. Like they never really circle back to that. Like, sorry, honey, I know I borrowed your car to get a fugitive across the country in Chicago, and I've left it somewhere outside of Texas.
I'll pay you back.
Well, he's got the money now.
That's true. He does have the money.
He had $1,000 bills, which they don't really make those anyway.
Well, yeah, no, that's actually one thing that I found weird. Like I've never seen $1,000 bill before I'd seen this film.
Those are real. But they're not in general circulation. They're used as like kind of like bearer bonds.
Right.
Banks and stuff will keep them.
Yep.
I think they've potentially gone a bit out of fashion, but they definitely it's real. It's not just made up. There were $1,000 bills.
Right, and then of course we get that fantastic line at the very end where he tries to get a cab and he goes, "You got change for $1,000." Because that's all the cash he's got on him.
Yeah, he's got to. Yeah, exactly. He's only going to walk. I'm just going on record. I would not be walking through El Segundo at night with $300,000 in cash.
So that's the thing, is that his character was carrying it the whole time.
Yeah, well, that was the twist. Like I didn't see that. That was good. I liked it.
Yeah, no, the character stuff in this was so good. Like, I'm just looking at the notes that I wrote down. Like the, like when one scene where the gangsters are on the phone to one of them's on the phone to Dennis Farina's character, to Serrano, and so one gangster's on the phone on the payphone, and the other one is like boxing him, like just kind of stuffing around.
Oh yeah.
And it's like just like little moments like that. I don't think like you see that very often in films. Like this guy's just bored out of his brain while his mate's on the phone, so he's just like boxing, being like, yeah, I'm just trying to pass the time, and then the guy's like trying to fend him off like he's just some child. Like it just. There's little things like that I just loved in this film so much.
And that's what I'm saying is like I wanted more of that.
Right.
To me, and like maybe this is just my sensibilities. It very could be because I love, Family Guy sort of everything in the kitchen sink type stuff.
Yeah.
But to me, it seemed like we needed more of those types of scenes. Like we needed more of that character interplay because we know it's a foregone conclusion of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's not, we don't need to worry too much about that.
So should we move on to sort of the context in which this film came out?
Sure. I mean, I don't.
Well, no. So
Let's do it.
I mean, the one thing that's probably worth pointing out is
1988, the election of George Herbert Walker Bush.
Woo!
Really ushered in a new era of filmmaking.
Yeah. But we look at
out
back
with
on
the
this
old,
now.
in with the old, out with Reagan, in with another old white man.
But we look back on this film now and we kind of go, oh yeah, Robert De Niro, like he did this comedy film. That's weird. It was still weird for then because he actually wasn't, he was a great actor, but he wasn't a massive star, like a massive bankable star at that point.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, like I've read a couple of things and they said like this is the one that made him a bankable star. Like yes, he had done Taxi Driver and
Raging Bull
and The Godfather Part 2. But
small little indie art house film.
Well, are they films that destroyed the box office and were like massive studio films?
Well, Jake LaMotta destroyed his opposition, Sugar Ray never took him down.
But otherwise, like these were like, these weren't your typical blockbuster summer Hollywood fare.
No. I mean,
right?
Taxi Driver is a psychological journey into a man with PTSD's brain, a descent into madness.
Whereas if you look back on what like De Niro had done up to that point, he hadn't really done anything that was super Hollywood friendly.
Okay.
And this was his maybe The Untouchables actually is probably
but
one
he's
that
definitely not the lead in that. Like he is the villain, and I mean, Kevin Costner and Andy Garcia and was it Sean Connery are the he's fourth banana in that movie.
Yeah. So I mean, he also did The Deer Hunter in '78, which I haven't seen.
Oh
but
God, phenomenal! Just that film is amazing.
Right, but again, is that?
I mean, look, we wouldn't call it Oscar bait then, but I mean, you're right. That movie's a 3-hour movie about about men going to Vietnam and being scarred by it and how they recreate their lives.
And just looking at what he'd done in the '80s, Brazil, Once Upon a Time in America.
That was the one about waxing, wasn't it?
I don't know. I just know it's a Terry Gilliam film, and
no, I'm pretty sure Brazil is about waxing.
Right. Okay. I'm going to let you have that joke because I don't know. I have no context for the joke. I'm just going to pretend like it's a thing that people are going to understand. The King of Comedy.
You don't understand what a Brazilian wax is?
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, God.
You are missing out, my friend.
So missing out. But this is the film that, made him seem bankable because he was able to do this mainstream action comedy film and do it really well. And it did fine.
And he probably hadn't shown off his comedy chops before this.
Well, I think he wanted to do a comedy.
This is way before Analyze This or Analyze That.
Yes.
Or The Fockers.
Well, that's the interesting thing is that, the stuff that he did in the noughties and sort of in this current decade this is a precursor to that.
I mean, because he does. I mean, he's a really good comic actor.
But yeah, in terms of the context, there's really not much else. Like, there's no women in this film, apart from his ex-wife and his daughter.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Which is worth pointing out. Every single character is a man.
No pass of the Bechdel test here.
Fuck no. It's actually that's probably one sort of blow against the film is that.
You're right. There's literally
no women.
There's literally just his wife and daughter,
and that's it.
There's no girlfriend character.
No.
Oh, there's Charles Grodin's wife, who's
Yeah.
actually in one of my. She has a bit part in one of my all-time favorite movies. What About Bob? But anyways, let's not go there.
But yeah, like I think that's probably a pretty decent criticism you could level against this. But the film does what it sets out to do at the end of the day. And I guess one thing you could say is that romance doesn't get in the way of the story. Like it doesn't feel like, because, some films, some of these, boring action films, there'll be a romance plot because they feel like it has to be there so a guy can drag his girlfriend into the cinema to watch it, right?
Yeah, it's crowbarred in.
Yeah, whereas this is not the situation at all.
Yeah, bold choice. Well done, Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Breast.
Yes, Mr. Breast. So in terms of the way the film was made,
do we want to add anything else for the cultural context?
I don't think
There's
so.
not really much to say.
No, because it doesn't really,
It's a bunch of white guys doing white guy stuff.
except for Alonzo Mosley, like
Except
yeah.
for Yaffe cut.
But like, yeah, it doesn't. I mean, one of the interesting things is that the stuff that takes place in an airport, like.
Oh, that's there.
Airports are always
there's the perennial pre 9/11 con. Yeah. I got to take the cuffs off you and check my gun in my luggage.
Yeah, like what? He's got this massive fucking, and also, is it Marvin? He's got at the end in the last scene in the airport, he's got a shotgun in his bag as he's buying the ticket to fly out of LA.
Yeah. Oh, I did like that paid off at the end because there's a runner throughout the movie where De Niro goes, "Hey Marvin, look at that," and then punches Marvin in the face.
Yes.
And then it pays off in the third one. It's like, "No, Marvin, there's actually a guy behind you." Yeah. So it's the crying wolf.
And actually, that
pays off well.
This film has a lot of payoffs like that.
Yeah, true.
Marvin and Jack constantly saying to each other, "See you in LA." They do it about 3 or 4 times throughout the film. And of course, also the thing with him punching him as well. The stuff with Marvin taking people out with a car door as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That was a great little character moment. Marvin wields his car door as a weapon.
And like Alonzo keeps stealing Marvin's cigarettes.
Yeah, there's a lot of runners.
The
You're
sunglass stuff between Jack and Alonzo as well.
Yeah.
And also the stuff with Alonzo Mosley, like all of these Alonzo Mosleys impersonating him popping up around across America. Like,
and he progressively gets more and more irritated.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing is that like I felt that this film, you could almost remake it and do a really good job. Like if you could take the script as is, shoot the script as is today, and just amp up the comedy a little better.
Yeah.
It could be just as good, if not better, than it is now.
Yeah.
Because to me, I felt that like there are a lot of those really solid, like built-in running jokes, like the stealing of the cigarettes, the sunglasses, the "Hey Marvin," and those all have to be written because they have to be referenced back, later.
True. Yeah.
But to me, it's like the failing point of the script, and this is getting into the filmmaking process, is that the script, I both liked it for that reason, and I felt it let it down for the same reason that there just wasn't enough there. Like it's these movies are like rom-coms in a sense. We know
Right.
what the ending is.
Yeah.
So the fun is actually in the execution.
It's all the meat in the sandwich. It's not the stuff at the start and the end. It's how we get there. That
It's like a romantic comedy. It's execution dependent.
Yep.
It's based on is the star going to get the cinema going audience into the cinema, and once they're in the cinema, are they going to have a good time? Depending on how well you've executed the film.
and then tell all their friends to come and watch it as well.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Whereas Guardians of the Galaxy, hey, I love Guardians of the Galaxy.
Exactly.
It does not matter if that movie is good or not.
No,
there are
it's-
good movies,
They are good movies.
but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. One of the things I really liked we're talking about Danny Elfman's score before and how it really set the tone for the film was, and I just kind of wanted to address that again, like particularly with Alonzo Mosley. Like there's a bit in the score that is just for him, and it's whenever he finds out about something or like when he gets dragged back into the plot again, like after he loses Jack and the Duke, there's just this little underscore that kind of kicks in. And it's like, and you can just see like the cogs in Alonso's brain turning and being like, yeah, okay, I think I finally got him. And then of course he never ends up getting them like ever at all. But yeah, the score, as you said before, the score works really well to help set the tone for the film in those moments occasionally, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, like this is I think a key thing because this is a road movie. This is a subset of the road movie genre. The annoying the annoying co-pilot road movie.
Yeah.
Subgenre is that this road movies, the score is incredibly important because it's about movement. The score is not actively adding to what's happening, then it's actively detracting from what's going on.
Yeah, right.
Like a film like that, like, you know, the Die Hard type movies, you know, the hermetically sealed environment. That's about tension and release.
Yeah.
Whereas this is about moving. We're always moving from one place to another.
Yeah.
And so having that pacing with the music, or having those signposts is like, okay, this is the movement music, or this is this type of music. That becomes much more vital than it would be in a different kind of action movie.
Yeah. Yeah,
where you're not moving.
Yeah, it's done really well. I also thought the use of improv in the film is interesting. Like, I just wouldn't expect it to have improv, but it does. So there was two scenes in particular. One is when they're in the boxcar on the train, and the Duke is trying to get Jack to open up about his busted watch. The watch thing is something that De Niro brought to the film, like wasn't in the script, funnily enough.
Oh, there you go.
Which is really interesting.
Because that's another payoff. That's another thing that is reincorporated. Talk about it.
But yeah, so the Duke's line about, have you ever had sex with animals, Jack? I really love that scene because it's
bizarre because it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, well,
but I guess if it's improvised, it does.
Well, it starts with the Duke having a conversation with himself and Jack, which is bloody hilarious. And it's funny. It's almost very meta in a sense. It's like it just boils down the whole film into this 20 seconds of him telling himself to fuck off. And yeah, the sex with animals line. The reason that was there is because they needed something that would make Jack Walsh / Robert De Niro crack a little bit and open up. And Martin Brest said to him, you need to say something that is going to make him laugh. And he apparently spent like 10 days trying to figure out what would make De Niro laugh, and it was sex with animals, and then talking about the chickens that they'd seen.
I think that's a real insight into the personality of Robert De Niro
and Charles Grodin.
Yeah.
But and the other scene, which is more classic improv scene, is is when they're trying to get the money off of the guys at the bar, so they can with the whole litmus configuration thing.
So yeah, the scene is they need some money for they're driving a hot wired car that they stole from some Indians.
And they're totally strapped for cash.
And they pulled this scam where they're saying, oh, these are counterfeit
$20 bills. Yeah. And then he's like, and I just love how he's like, he says, oh, has it, you know, can you describe some of the people that have gone through here? Was there a guy about 6 foot? He goes, nah, 6'5". Yeah. Did he have brown hair? He's a kind of lineish blonde. Yeah, sounds exactly like our guy.
Yeah, that was a really good line.
It's just so good. And yeah, they just end up walking out with like $100
and then jump on a freight train.
Yeah, so
that felt a little bit kind of that was the one misstep I felt in terms of because with these types of movies, obviously in the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, it says exactly what they're going to have to do, but they're always they have to change modes of transport.
Right.
So it's how do you make those changes in modes of transport believable?
Yeah.
And that was the one failure I felt like.
Because why didn't he just keep driving the car?
I mean, the car's stolen, but.
And it also costs money to run a car, but then it's like, yeah, you've got to dive off of a freight train.
Yeah, that was the one, because that's because the bar owner sees the two of them jumping into the freight train, and that's what makes them call the FBI. Yeah. So I was like, to me, I was like, why are they jumping onto a train? I was like,
it is very much a forced change. Yeah, I thought the use of improv was unexpected, but yeah, it was done quite well.
And I think I would have liked to see more of that. I mean, Robert De Niro is known for improvising. I mean, he's a
very good actor.
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, you sort of spoken about like how you feel that some of the scenes in the film could have done with more punching up in terms of on set, like getting more comedy into them. Is there any?
That's it, because there's so many phone calls back and forth between people. That's the thing, is that because part of the conceit is that like the way that people are figuring out where Jack and the Duke are is through the phone calls back to the bail bondsman, back to Marconi. And Marconi's offsider is on the take from the mob.
Yeah.
So he's relaying information to the mob. So like there's so many phone calls back and forth between Marconi, the mobsters, or the offsider to the mobsters to Dennis Farina, the head boss guy. There's so many different phone calls back and forth.
Yeah.
That it's like those are the scenes that I felt were really cumbersome.
Right.
And like could have been punched up. Like it
Yeah.
could have had more energy within them.
Right.
Because like, and maybe this is an issue of the time because they're all on payphones and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
They can't. They're literally with the telephone calls. They're literally locked to a single location. They can't walk around. So that's the thing that all those successive telephone calls because they, Jack has to call back to get money from the bail bondsman. Jack has to call this person for that. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
And so they lock you into a single place.
Yeah, right.
And so Marconi is always in the office. Now, it's good for the budget because you don't have to...
And also, good for Dennis Farina as well because I think he was shooting a TV show in Las Vegas at the time. So, like, all of his stuff was shot in Vegas, except for obviously the final scene.
Oh, what Crime Story? I would have been Crime Story.
Yeah.
80s, yeah.
So, I didn't notice that as much, but I think it's definitely a really good point because, I was just happy to go back to Joe Pantoliano being, exasperated over the fact that for some reason the Duke is still not in LA and he's on the hook for $450,000. Like for me, it was enough just seeing that. But you're right. Like if there was more effort put into those scenes and even the ones, with like Dennis Farina is just doing Dennis Farina things. Like he doesn't really, there isn't a hell of a lot more like, he was probably much better in Snatch, which came out, almost 20 years later, doing that role of being like the angry mobster guy than in this film, purely because I think he just had more to work with in that film. Whereas,
there's nothing much for him to play with here. It was interesting seeing Philip Baker Hall too as like I guess it's kind of a lawyer or something like that.
Yeah, that was a really weird random one. Like he was just like telling him what he should and shouldn't do, but it almost felt unnecessary. Like I don't know why that character was there.
Yeah, I love Philip Baker Hall,
yeah.
But I just was like, why is he even here? Like it was never even clear that he was the lawyer. It was implied that he's like the lawyer, like get off the phone, don't talk about this on the phone and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but it's like we actually don't know who he is.
I think he's kind of like his consigliere or possibly. I think there is a line in there something where it makes him sound more like a lawyer because he sort of doesn't. He really advises him to not do anything, overtly illegal.
Yeah, but this is like the sort of trope that like, we saw a lot in this type of films in this day and age. It's like don't do anything illegal. It's the kind of the Jiminy Cricket, sort of lawyer character. Like it's like, man, don't need it.
Yeah.
Don't need it. But I think this movie would be completely destroyed if there was such thing as mobile phones because Jack would just text Marconi.
Yeah.
And these are like the little things like that. Well, when I said, you could potentially remake this film now and it could be a lot better. Maybe that couldn't be true because why? How would they have the wiretaps? Like,
well, you can still, whether or not there's a way to tap someone's mobile phone is one thing, but also
the NSA has figured out.
But battery, like if you're on the road and your cell phone runs out of juice, like. That's a very simple way of getting around it. Yeah, it would require a little bit more than sort of what you said of just filming the script again. You'd need to retool it a little bit. But I don't think, it doesn't suffer too much from that. Well, actually, no, it does suffer a lot from the technology thing. As you said, cell phones versus payphones.
Sure, yeah.
No, 100%.
They're all locked into that look. Yeah, and those are the scenes that really, for me, are the failing points.
Yeah.
But like in some scenes too, like the Yaphet Kotto, Robert De Niro scene in the beginning where they're in would start with kicks off the whole sunglasses thing. It's like I felt that could have been funnier. I just felt like I was like
really.
Yeah.
I just love the bit at the end where like De Niro practices flipping out the badge, like just that like
that was a good button on the scene. I just felt it could have crackled a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe I like what it is. It's just because I love people being wise asses.
Yeah, you just wanted to load it up.
I don't know why. I don't have a mystery. Well, I'm a mystery to myself sometimes, Antonio.
You're a mystery wrapped up in an enigma.
Yeah. I'm deep like a puddle on a hot summer day. This is the one other thing is there's so much smoking in this movie.
Yeah, De Niro smokes like a chimney.
It's like Mad Men.
Yeah.
They smoke so much. Everybody's smoking all the time, every place, everywhere. Everyone.
Yeah, no, it's and the funny thing is for me, when seeing that for the first time, you go, oh, it's the 80s, like they didn't know better. But Charles
There was no
Grodin's
such thing as
character,
cancer thing.
Well, no, but Charles Grodin's character actually makes a point of it when they're on the bus.
Yeah, well, see, and that's another thing. That's the other thing that fell flat to me, actually, now that we're mentioning this, is the Charles Grodin getting after De Niro for being unhealthy and smoking. And it's like, you shouldn't smoke. You shouldn't eat the chicken, fried chicken and stuff like that. That to me, but that's just dated in the sense of like, what we would talk about. Now it would be like gluten-free or something like that.
Yeah, but I feel like that is also it's him figuring out who Jack Walsh is and eventually going like, oh, you're just constantly angry. It's like he eats bad food because it tastes good. Like he's a man of short-term gain versus like short-term loss to get long-term gain. Like short-term gain, long-term loss versus the other way around it. And I think that's his way of picking him apart and eventually being able to get him to crack when they're on the boxcar. And
okay, yeah.
But yeah, no, again, yeah, it didn't really have a lot of teeth or grit to it.
That's it. That's to me. It's like this whole like smoking's bad for you. It's like well yeah we know. But that's in the aging. That's in the
yeah. But yeah, and in the end, it's also in terms of the experience of the film, it's another way for them to bash heads essentially.
Yeah, and the Yaphet Kotto stealing Marvin's cigarettes all the time. That's a good little. I love that runner. I love those are good.
Okay, so I mean, overall, this like your final review of this film. Yeah, what would you say to put a little bow on this?
To tie it up, I would say this is a good film. This is a good film for the time and place that it came out.
Right.
I'm appreciative that I've watched it in terms of film history.
Yeah, right.
That I now have seen one more Robert De Niro movie, but I can safely say that I most likely will not return to this.
Yeah. For me, I think it's one of those films that that if it's on TV, I'd be like, and you've got nothing better to do, definitely watch it for sure. And it's also one of those films where I feel like when you don't know what you want to watch, chuck it on because chances are you're going to enjoy it and you're going to feel like, you know what, those last couple of hours, I watched something that I kind of enjoyed rather than like spending half an hour on Netflix or your video on demand service of choice being like, fuck, what am I going to watch?
That's the worst, isn't it?
Yeah. I think this is
God, it's so hard.
so hard having so much choice.
Like gotta go back between Amazon Prime and Netflix and
and Stan. Then we're gonna have CBS All Access soon.
Oh my God, it's so difficult being us.
Exactly. So I feel like it's one of those things where you can just chuck it on to cure the boredom for 2 hours.
Yeah, that, and I will say from a writer's perspective, watch this movie to see all the runners that they have, all the running jokes that they have.
Yeah.
That is really good.
Yeah.
That is really good. And all the characters, and this is the other thing I'll say too, all the characters have really clear motivations and there was a very clear dilemma in the movie as well.
Yeah.
That is another thing that I felt. And I think the only thing this movie suffers from is age. It's literally the only thing it suffers from is age. Because in terms of De Niro's character motivations, the only one that really actually Charles Grodin is the one that has the least character motivation. Just to get away.
He doesn't have a journey or anything like that.
He has no journey, and that's I'll give that a little bit of a criticism there. I'll mark that as a critical point. But De Niro's character, the whole thing of the irony of I'm turning you into the guy who ruined I'm turning you into be essentially killed by the guy who ruined my career as a cop and destroyed my marriage.
Yep.
That is a good dilemma to have.
It's a great little, is it Ouroboros? Like this whole snake eating its own tail type thing.
And it's possibly just not played up enough. I thought maybe they could have twisted the knife in a little bit harder.
I also feel like
it is a comedy. It is a light comedy.
If they twisted the knife too much, it probably would have felt forced and a little over dramatic, I reckon.
Sure. And like you said, this movie is a comedy. At the end, there is no big shootout in the airport. Tragedy is averted.
Yeah. So
that felt genuine.
Yeah, and I think it was a great way to end the film. It was nice that it was different, and it's like you've seen enough set pieces up until that point. it just there didn't need to be a massive, ridiculous massacre in an airport.
It would have felt really out of place.
Yeah.
All right. So in conclusion, what's your review?
I give this film 10 out of 12 Alonzo Mosleys.
Oh yes, because there was a lot of
There were
different
so
people.
many Alonzo Mosleys in this film.
Yep. Okay, that's good. I will give this film 5 out of 7 aviator sunglasses.
So thank you for listening, and we will see you on the flip flop.
See ya when we flip over the laser disc.
Yes.
And just before we go, we got to do it. We got to plug social media.
Like us on Facebook at TOFTS Podcast and follow us on Twitter at TOFTS Podcast to stay up to date and send us any movie review suggestions. Make sure you also subscribe on your podcasting app of choice and leave us a review. It helps.
It really does. I'll give this film. Whoa, shit, sorry. Keep that in.
Fuck yeah. For sure.